Good morning, those master team guests. It's good to see you all. Let's share my screen. Last year, when I started to work from home twice a week, I realized that I needed to buy a computer monitor. So I set my budget of about $100. I didn't want to spend more than that. And since the monitors at work were about 21 inches, and it was what I was used to, I wanted also then a monitor that was around that size, or at least 21 inches. So with that information, I went to Best Buy and started to look and compare monitors. This is more or less to give you an idea of the options. And the question was, should I buy the one that's closest to my budget, or should I pay almost double my budget for a larger monitor that, because of the size and because of additional specifications, promise me to make me more efficient at work and in turn happier? So I spent a couple hours inspecting and comparing many monitors and reviewing and reading all their technical specifications. But fortunately, I'm cheap. So at the end, I decided to stick to my budget and went for one similar to this one. And the price was the same, $109.09. So I went and bought it. And I wasn't really happy with my choice. I thought I had settled. I thought, okay, it's a monitor, it's fine. I don't need to be, like, wow, by my monitor, it's okay. I'll take it. So I went home, not really, satisfied. So I took the monitor home, I assembled it, and after that, something strange happened. After it was assembled like this, it actually looked good. I thought it was great. And by looking at, and in comparison to my laptop, the size was really perfect. I thought that I didn't really need a larger one. Probably I wouldn't have had space in my desk for a 27-inch monitor. And it's been a year, and I haven't really had a use for a second HDMI, which was one of the additional things that a more expensive monitor had. So actually the choice I made was good enough, more than good enough. And after having the monitor at home and working with it for some time, I ended up actually being really happy with my purchase. So it was a completely different feeling from when I was, at the store and comparing all the monitors, and then here just having it as the only monitor here. And as I say, it looked awesome to me. So what exactly happened between, the store and my home? So what happened, I understood later, is that I had fell for this cognitive quirk called distinction bias. So what is distinction bias? It's this tendency that we have to overvalue or overestimate small differences, especially quantitative differences, when we are comparing options. For qualitative difference, we are a little bit better, but when we have to compare numbers or properties that involve numbers, we are really not very good. And why this happened? Well, there are a couple of reasons. One is that there is a disconnect between our prediction of which of the options will give us a disconnect between of what we think or we predict which option will give us more satisfaction versus the actual experience of choosing that option. We tend to overestimate how a future event will impact our emotional state or our happiness. And some research says that we are in different modes when we are comparing things than when we are experiencing them. So when we are making a choice, we are in what is called the comparison mode, and we are doing a joint evaluation. And at that time, when we are comparing options, we become hypersensitive to small differences, and we start playing this spot the difference game and justifying, why this option is better than the other. And while we are doing that difference, we actually are making those differences more important than what they really are. Then, after we've made our choice, we are living with the consequence of it, then we are actually in the experience mode. At that time, there is nothing to compare. So we are doing a single evaluation. And at that time, we actually realize that the differences that we perceived before are actually not that relevant. And that's important because when we're making decisions where the stakes are greater than buying a monitor or things like that, distinction bias can be quite harmful. For instance, it could cause us to go over the budget for when shopping for things like a car or even a house. We may think that buying a 1,400 square foot home will make us happier than having a 12 square foot home, and then we end up in debt. So how can we avoid it? Okay. Here are a couple of things that we can do. So the first thing is do not compare things side by side. Instead, what we can do is evaluate each alternative independently. Have, like what Ron did, maybe a pros and cons list, or if we are able to experience each of the alternatives and see how we feel with them. That's one option. And related to this one too is the second one, is to know your needs, your must-haves beforehand, before you go looking for the item. That way, you won't be distracted, by all the bells and whistles of the other options that you have. If you have your must-haves, then you know that as soon as all your checks, all your requirements are checked, then you can just go for the cheaper, between those. And so with those things, it would hopefully will make it easier or a better experience when we are deciding between alternatives. And this distinction bias is a cognitive quirk that we can actually manage and turn it around to our advantage. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Sofia. I learned quite a bit about biases now, so I'm going to look at some couple of things now.